What's going on, everyone? Kelly Cavalier here, one half of Seven Area Media, and welcome to today's edition of the Honky Tonk Highway, episode 15. It's been a nice wild ride so far. Hope you guys are enjoying all the interviews and stuff that we've been talking about. If you haven't yet, please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We are currently live on both Facebook and YouTube for those who want to watch on either show. That way, you can catch it wherever you want. Today's guest, I have known him since he was just a wee little lad. Originally from Liverpool over in England, he now resides up in Boston, Massachusetts. If anybody knows him, you know that I'm wearing the proper shirt for today's show. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Rob Glover. What's up, mate?
What's happening, buddy? How you doing?
Doing awesome, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, you're welcome. Hey, thanks for wearing that shirt. I just heard you mention that as well. Look at that.
Of course, man. I can't have my buddy from Liverpool on the show and not wear my Liverpool jersey. That would just be like, no, that just would be like bad news.
That's it, mate. Live a bird upon your chest.
Exactly. So for those who out there at home that do not know much about you, why don't you give us a little history on how you got into dancing?
Right, okay. Yeah, how I got into dancing, well, it was all, I guess the biggest thing was, it was a way of keeping me out of trouble when I was a kid, really. All I ever wanted to do, growing up in Liverpool, like you said, all I ever wanted to do was play football or soccer, for those Americans listening. But now all I ever wanted to do was play football. I always had the ball at my feet, and then it was boxing and, a lot of different sports. And I always wanted to act. I was always acting as well and going to different lessons there. But how I got into dancing was my grandparents, my nan and granddad. They used to teach 5 to 6 line dance classes every week when I was a kid. So at a very young age, it was going along with them and it saved money on babysitters, really, especially even their afternoon classes. But the evening classes, and that's how it all started, was with my nan and granddad. And then from there, I got paid 50p for every dance that I'd learn. So quickly it was I wanted to learn a lot more to make a little bit of pocket money,
Of course.
Yeah, so from there, I mean, it was a case of going to the different, my acting school and whatever. And my granddad set me a challenge one day. He said, your dancing's picking up and whatever. Take a ballet class. So he took me in for a ballet class. He said it'd be good for your good for your balance and your footwork and all of that stuff. And it just aided things, really. And I fell in love with dancing and moving instantly when I was a kid,
Awesome. So what's it been like ever since you've been over here for a couple of years now, transitioning from being in the UK and coming over here to the States?
Yeah, I've been here, 11, 12 years now that I've been living in the States, which is crazy how much it's flown.
That is insane. Ooh.
Yeah. When I first threw that dart at the map of the United States and it landed on Boston, I didn't realise how bloody cold it'd be at certain times. I think Miss McEnany White now, as she is, she got it right down in the same coast, but a little bit warmer down where she is, where you are.
Yeah, but, it's definitely warmer down here.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. I love Boston. It's an amazing city. It's very, very similar to Liverpool. So instantly, even when I first came over as a kid, the first time I came to Boston was for the Showdown, and back then it was up in kind of the Waltham area.
Yep.
So it was in the old hotel there in the Waltham area, and coincidentally, that's only 5 minutes down the road now from where I live.
Close for you.
So I remember the first time I came over to the city of Boston, it just felt a lot like Liverpool, that working class mentality, loves its sports. That was the feel of it. So yeah, home away from home.
And like Jim said, it's done nothing for your accent. You still have the English accent, not the Boston accent. Huge shout out to my boy Victor. Real quick, Victor's on watching us. One of the best DJs in the West Coast swing world. Shout out to Victor.
What's happening, Victor?
Speaking of it, since Victor chimed in and you're West Coast swing DJ, you're big into the West Coast swing world now. What's that been like, transitioning from being mainly the line dancer and doing the line dance side to now the West Coast and the couples world?
Yeah, I mean, Look, for me, it's all movement. You know, I like to. I'm addicted to dance. That's truly what it is. And I think about dancing. To me, it's like a language, right? So
Right.
the more words create sentences, paragraphs, pages. And to me, it's spelling, punctuation, and grammar is all the technique. And that was something that was drilled into me as a kid. But I think, I fell in love with the couples dance side, obviously through the competitive line dance world. So growing up and competing and seeing kind of all the UCWDC couples, and then West Coast Swing was always a big part of that. So it's not necessarily that it's transitioned from one to the other. Both have always ran as a parallel for me. And if you ask anyone within the West Coast Swing world, I mean, the hierarchy or the pinnacle, they're all line dancers at heart.
A lot of them did start out that way too.
Every one of those dancers that are at the top of the West Coast Swing world were also line dancers.
Right.
Were also into country couples and crossing over. So for me, West Coast Swing is something that is amazing, given its versatility. Just moving with a partner is a totally different feel of it, and I'm addicted to both still. I still do line dance. I still line dance at those events. I still dance on my own.
That's good.
As much as I can,
You've got to do so much so far in your dance journey. You're on, was it Strictly Come Dancing over there in the UK?
Yeah. So it was Strictly Dance Fever is what it was called, the TV side. But it was the same thing. It was the BBC. The BBC who still do Strictly Come Dancing, which is Dancing with the Stars over here. But yeah, that was more of like a So You Think nod. It was kind of a hybrid really between what is So You Think You Can Dance Now and what is Dancing with the Stars now. So it was that kind of feel. But yeah, I was on the second season, and there was a load of line dancers on the first season as well. So there was a load of line dancers took over both seasons on that. But Danny and Jodie to be the one couple, for example. But then it was, there was loads of us kind of winning all of that. It was brilliant, especially the audition rounds for that was fun.
With everything you've done so far in your dance career, between being on that show, competing over here in the States, dancing at the U.S. Open, what's been your top moment for you? What's been the moment you've been most proud of?
As a dancer?
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't say it was going to be easy on you today.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, I think that breaks down into a couple of different things for me, mate. I mean, performing, being on stage for me was always the best feeling, that I ever got. Coming up, you can't beat lights and there's an audience. So, whether that was on the competition floor was a totally different feeling. Still is, even in the West Coast Swing world. Like, that's a different feel. Like, to me, whenever I'm competing, it was always more about the journey of it. Like, it was the growth and being in the rehearsal studios. So there's proud moments that you have kind of privately in the rehearsal studios with a coach or with a mentor. And I think that they're kind of memories that I really treasure the most. I always remember kind of even being with Rob Fowler all the time, going over me line dance stuff as a kid, and just making little breakthroughs at different things on that rent. But then being on stage, I did a musical with Robert Royston actually when I first came over to the States not long after that. It was called One Ride. So I was lucky enough to play the lead in that show, and it was great. I mean, it was a mixture of all of my different worlds colliding. It was the knowledge and the background of line dance stuff and country couples and swing that I know Robert within those worlds, and I've grown up kind of idolizing him and watching him on that. And then being able to work with them and bringing in the musical theatre aspect. And then the third kind of piece of that was that it was country music, and it was Chris Ledoux. It was all Chris Ledoux's songs. So all of my worlds colliding. That short run that we had of One Ride in New York, was epic. An off Broadway show. That I'd say that was probably me proudest moment, dance wise and movement wise.
Speaking of Robert Royston, you do a lot of stuff like he did. He competed. He went to Broadway. He became an MC. Which one do you like doing the most? I know you love being behind the microphone. I love on the floor. Which one is that better moment for you now? Because I know you love doing both.
Yeah, I definitely don't like competing against anyone that's younger than me. I think I'm at the tail end of competitive wise and where I'm going. I mean, I know I can still keep going for a few years.
So you're still pretty young.
That's the fun part. Yeah. I mean, I love all of it, to be fair. I mean, it's really interesting. Like I guess what I'm really addicted to the most, and I think I can find this in every one of those mediums or every one of those channels that you just spoke about.
Right.
I think I love thinking on my feet and diving into that Liverpool nature of a quick wit, so to speak.
Yeah.
I love getting lost in moments, and I think I can find that escape and just kind of flow state, for lack of a better term. You know, I slip into this flow state in each one of those roles, and it's fun. You know.
Nice. So we got some royalty in the chat. Guyton Monday has joined us. What up, G?
What's happening, brother?
Since Guyton's in there, my next question was actually going to be, and he was one of the people you competed with. You've competed many times at the Boston Line Dance Showdown. Jen and Jason Cameron's event up in Boston. Yeah. You competed with Russell, with Rachel, with Guyton. Which one did you enjoy doing the most? Considering they're all, looking back at every one you've done, they're one end of the spectrum to the other.
Completely.
You definitely didn't stay in the same spectrum when you went from with dancing with Rachel, with Russell, Guyton. Y'all played dying versions of yourselves.
We did, yeah. We died at the end of that one.
You did.
I mean, I think coming back to it again. I mean, it's a great question. I mean, for me, first and foremost, Line Dance Showdown was brilliant. That was kind of the, you know, and it still is. I mean, the idea of it, the feeling of it, that's always my roots. And that was my first kind of big flurry of coming over to America. And again, that'll always hold a special place in my heart for what Jen and Jason have done and have been able to do for this community and for the line dance world in general, really. But that event was always special. It was always the highlight of the year and where you were going with that and the growth of it over the years. In terms of competing, again, going back to what I said earlier, the process for me was always the funnest. I mean, let's say with Guyton, I know he's here, for example. So the biggest thing was the laugh that we had kind of coming up with it and being in the recording studio and doing our voiceovers and, you know, just kind of the drills of that. So it was less about the show again itself. I'm addicted to the process and the creative process. Yeah, it's fun being able to do it over and over and get to compete and for the crowd, but it was never about the competition, if that makes sense. It was all about the process and then the show. With Rachel, I mean, she's always been like a big sister to me, and I love her to bits. I always will. She's family, you know, and
I did post the Raggedy Ann and Andy routine like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. That was one of my throwbacks.
Raggedy Ann and Andy, we don't know what they are in England, you know, or who they are.
That had to be fun trying to explain that to you. Yeah, you're pretty much going to play a dead thing with a mop on your head.
Yeah, and then the other part was that Rachel took a leap of faith with me on that, because I said to her, I was like, look, Raggedy Ann and Andy. She went, who? You know, so then it was like the blind leading the blind. I was like, well, I think this is who they are. So it was nice being able to play with that. But again, when you get in that state and in that groove, it's just ideas. You finish each other's sentences, and that's what I've loved the most about it. And then as far as Russell, you know, we work together in the studio up here. He's a creative genius in his own right.
He is.
And that was Fosse. I mean, that's my idol in the dance world, was being able to do a Bob Fosse piece. All my worlds coming into one, you know.
Yeah, it was. I remember because that was right around the same time y'all did the huge show at the studio that I came down and ran the lights for you for.
That's it,
and y'all did that huge thing at the studio.
Yeah.
That was, he was just, the chemistry you end up having with all three of them too was just insane. Absolutely insane.
It was a great platform. Talk about the stage and again, and coming back to where it is that, you know, that I love to be as a performer and as a dancer. It's being able to give back to an audience and that feeling you get from a live audience. But chemistry, yeah, I mean, that's, it is. I mean, these were people that I admired and looked up to. So it's not necessarily like, especially, you know, obviously Rachel from an early age, and then Guyton when I first started coming over to the States and getting to meet him properly and work with him. I mean, it's family, you know.
Right. You've obviously wrote many line dances with tons of different people. What is your favorite one you've written so far?
That's an interesting one as well. I mean, yeah, a lot of the collaborations again are fun. I mean, I'm sensing a theme going on here by hearing myself say all this. it is collaborations, and I love those. Certain ones that I'd choreographed myself. I still love the feeling. Like Little Red Corvette, for example, I think is an interesting one. I just love the feel of that, and now being able to get to know Mike Zito through it, the artist, like that was an interesting one, and hearing it from that route, and then hearing that constantly come on every now and again in the swing world when we're just social dancing late night. So then even stuff with Mark Ballas and Get My Name was pretty fun when he kind of came out with that. But I'd say pride wise, like, actually, there was one moment when, so I'd been asked to choreograph something for Superstars, the Superstars division, and it was a samba. It was kind of the first time that they wanted to really kind of push a samba in the Superstars division, and I was asked to choreograph that. So I remember kind of challenging it and tweaking it, and then what would I want from a show dynamic,
right?
And then not seeing it throughout the competitive year because I'd never really been to many events, but at Worlds I was emceeing that division. So what was crazy and what was nice about it was that Worlds, I'm seeing this live, I'm announcing them all to come out heat after heat and seeing my dance from that perspective. That was really a cool moment. I always remember kind of Brian, that was the year just as Brian Baracoskas had stopped dancing. And he said to me that he wished he had of. And then I remember Cody Moline coming up to me as well, legend Cody Moline within the swing world and the couples world and country world.
Yes.
I remember Cody coming up to me and just kind of talking about that, and we had plans then to go and do a demo of it that never really came to fruition, unfortunately, because it was passing as well. But I'd say that the samba.
Nice. Speaking of Brian, I remember seeing a video of you and Brian watching the Superstars division one year, and this turns into, I know you're a huge country music fan.
Massive.
Diehard, massive country music fan.
Oh, yeah.
What was it like sitting on the front row with Brian watching Shane McKeever do his solo to completely all Garth Brooks songs, including the hip-hop, pop and lock section? All I remember is you only could see heads, and then Shane gets to the end, and you see you two jump up in front of the camera like two little school kids on Christmas morning that just got to celebrate. What was that like at Worlds?
I mean, it's a culmination of different things. I mean, getting to sit and watch, and I think back of all of the years of getting to watch these divisions, and it's the same feeling in the swing world, like watching the US Open or watching the couples divisions and Masters division and whatever. But line dance wise, I mean, I've known Shane obviously since we were kids, and he's a couple of years younger than me within that side too. So Shane doing that with Garth Brooks, it was brilliant because it brought everything back to a classic time of line dance.
Right.
B, it was all country. C, it was Garth Brooks, right? But then within the biggest thing for me and Brian watching it was this collective effort of really getting behind Shane, and he smashed it. It was a great idea, very poignant. It was all live, and it was brilliant. And I know Nicola helped him out a lot with that as well. So props to Nicola for coming up with a lot of that idea with him and developing that. And to me, it was brilliant.
Huge props, because I remember he did that at Showdown right after that when he came over for Showdown, and that routine. Oh, that whole routine was just amazing.
Yeah, even though he's a Man United fan, I love him. That does shock me that you. I can't even believe I said those words, like blasphemy.
So one of the questions I had come in for you were, who and what are the Dancing Fools, and how did you come involved with the Dancing Fools?
Yeah, happy days. So the Dancing Fools, that's something that we have. Kind of up here in Boston. It's been 8 years now. Yeah, going into our 8th year. So every single Wednesday night
nice.
For 8 years now, we've had college kids. So it's all college students. We get 150 to 180 college students is our average every Wednesday. Sometimes it hits over the 200s and 220. I think up in that level for a consistent couple of weeks was last year. But yeah, that's myself and Neil Klein. So Neil he is a dancing fool himself. Neil is a legend in the dance world, especially up here in Boston, and he's a professor over at Lesley University. And again, he's family. So swing in New England was always his baby and his growth from there. He had his monthly dances and his studios up here. But then we decided, obviously on the back of his Lesley universities, to really grow for this and create a feeder system within the collegiate world. And it started there. We had then 2 full graduating cycles of college kids going through, and we've now formed something called University Swing on the back of it. So our Wednesday nights, the growth of University Swing and the idea of where we want to go with that is to use what we've done with the dancing fools on a Wednesday night as an example, and then hopefully we can help nurture the collegiate network of swing dancing, and that's West Coast Swing, Lindy, Balboa, Charleston, giving them all college semesters, getting credits at school for being able to take class. That's kind of the big dream in it, but that's all started from the dancing fools.
Oh wow, that's nice. That'd be really cool. The other question I had come in: have you ever taken your dad to Hooters? And you can probably guess where that came from.
Yeah, Big Jim. The funniest part was that was when I first moved over here. When I first moved over here, it was cheaper for me to pay for a flight for my dad to come with 2 suitcases full of clothes and stuff that I needed than it was for me to ship everything out.
That's sad, actually.
Big Jim was picking us up in Boston. He had he was able to squeeze a van out of work, and he came in and picked us up. I said to my dad, Jim had this arranged, but I said to my dad, I went, right, we'll get off, we'll go for something to eat, we'll go for a burger or something when we're done. So he's been asking me on the plane, is this something you want to do? Do you really want to go to America? Do you want to move over there? Yeah, Dad, I do. So we walk into Hooters. Now, the other thing is, right, he'd never been, didn't know what it was, and I didn't explain it to him. So we walk in, and all of the Hooters girls have got this, there must have been about 12 of them, they're all lined up, and they've got this banner that just says, "Welcome to America, Rob," and it was placed, so we say, strategically under certain Hooters assets. So my dad walks in, his jaw hits the floor. He looks at me and he goes, "I can see why you're moving to America, lad."
And of course, leave it to Big Jim to have something like that set up for you, ready to go, of course.
Legend. Go ahead, mate.
Oh, man.
He's family as well. One big family.
Yes. For those who've never eaten at Hooters, eating at Hooters with a Big Jim is a totally different experience. So you must experience that one time in your life. You'll enjoy it, I promise. So tell us a little bit about your evolution of going from being a line dancer to now competing in the swing. What that was like, kind of leaving the line dance world, even though you do come back, but you do concentrate a lot on swing now. I know you compete at the U.S. Open with your partner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little bit of the journey. I mean, look, the biggest thing was it always is my roots. I mean, line dancing is the whole reason. It is the whole reason why I am as well-rounded and as versatile as I am, or could be. I'm always kind of working on different techniques. I don't in any way think that's where I'm at on that side. But I mean, I think the biggest thing is musicality as well. Being able to break down beats and knowing these different complications. The interesting part is, on the flip side, if you throw so many line dancers at couples dances, for example, they can't get them. And it was even in the audition world. I remember going back to One Ride, for example. Day one, it was all the solo stuff. When we had the auditions, I helped with the auditions in New York. I remember day one, we're on the panel and we're giving them routines and choreography. It was all solo movement and it was brilliant. Come back to day two for your callbacks. Every one of the front runners, solo wise, struggled then with the couples dance, and it was an interesting transition in that side. So for me, it was the same way, right? All of a sudden, I've been used to dancing on my own and then not having a partner in front of me.
Right.
My only exposure initially to partner dancing was pas de deux through ballet. So what drew me to it was not necessarily the style of dance. It was more the idea of movement. I'm addicted to the root of movement. That's truly what it is that I am. And the idea of being able to move a partner and play and create different shapes and express different rhythms and beats, and the freedom and the versatility of West Coast Swing is what I'm addicted to the most. So, it was a fun transition, but it was more based on the art of movement for me.
Nice. So if you weren't a dancer, What would be your ideal job?
Well, in an ideal world, I'd be playing for Liverpool Football Club right now. I mean, it was football. I've still, even to this day, mate. I mean, I'm never far away from a football.
This
In my
is true.
car,
You're always at a bar watching a game somewhere.
yeah, well and truly.
Your dad just says, "Hi, Rob." Dad here.
Hi, Dad.
Jamie Marshall says, "Tell us a little bit more about Dancing with the Stars." Yes, for anybody who pays attention to his Facebook, you'll see Rob in the crowd Dancing with the Stars very often.
Yeah. I mean, so it's an interesting one, mate. I mean, I love the show. I love the format of the show. About it, I mean, I know a lot of the dancers I've grown up with, right? They were all cast friends of mine. So I was on tour with Danny, actually, coming back to Danny as well. I was on tour in a Latin Ballroom show and a world tour of that for a while, and that was called Simply Ballroom. And that was right out of college. So a lot of the cast on Dancing with the Stars, like Emma, for example, Emma Slater, she was kind of one of my dance partners on that, or one of our cast members on that. So I've always stayed in touch, and it's just great to see a lot of my friends kind of on that show and where they've branched off to now in the various different shows around the world. The Irish version of the show, kind of the South African version, and the Australian version now, and to see a lot of my friends and then coaches and mentors are always within it. But then behind the scenes, the coolest thing behind the scenes is it's the same wardrobe people and hairstylists and camera operators and producers that have all been a part of the original stuff in the BBC.
Okay.
So they're all expats just living in LA. So it's great. I get to go out there, I get invited in, and the after parties are the best one when the ale's free.
Andy wants to know if you were ever invited to compete on Dancing with the Stars, would you do it?
An interesting one, mate. I mean, I don't like all of the press side of things. I've looked at different things. I've put out different feelers. I've had conversations about potentially being a pro on the show a while back in various forms of the show. That was both in England. I've still got my agent in London, and I've still got kind of an agent out in LA. So there's been options there. But for me, I like a lot of the behind the scenes. So for me, I still work now on choreography. So occasionally I work on some choreography back home in England every now and again. And that's with Jenny. Jenny Thomas is an absolutely amazing woman. She's a legend in her own right from the Lindy world. If you don't know Jenny Thomas, look her up. So with Jenny, I know Darren had the opportunity to do that. Darren Bailey's had the opportunity to work with her a lot of times before he moved over as well. But assistant choreography, and I do the same now over here in the States. So take a story arc and a journey and all of that,
Nice. Obviously, big question here. What's it like being home now? You're never home. You're always on the road. You're always got your ticket to ride somewhere. You're never home. How's being home? How's Aaron liking having you home all this? We've seen your VR videos, so
mate, it's crazy. I am climbing the walls. That's for sure. I mean, I'm starting to now. It's been. Look, it's a hard one, isn't it, globally? I know everyone's in the same position, and that's what helps, but definitely at first it was tough. And the hardest one is the amount of flights, and I think as each event slowly gets cancelled and they keep going on, and that's the line dance events, the swing events, the country events, and then even kind of the football calendars and stuff, my production events and whatever, it's like another little dagger to the heart.
Oh, sure.
But the feeling of it, I mean, I'm enjoying it, mate. I've been, I feel like I've been at school. I've dove into so many online lessons and workshops,
right.
and in industries that like I've got no real business being in, like finding out a lot more of the tech world or within that side. So I've learned loads, and I've been networking quite a lot online, and it's been brilliant. Lectures from CEOs and whatever. So I've been at school. I'm ready to be done with school though.
How's Erin liking having you home all this time?
Yeah, she's locked herself in the back bedroom at work. She's swamped at work. But no, it's been good, mate. I mean, it's been good being attempting to eat healthy is what I'll say. So and stick to a routine and a regiment on that side. she's been swamped with work. She's working longer hours right now than she does normally. I say normally, so it's hard
Right.
transitioning to all of that. So I just know to open a bottle of wine or a couple of cans of cider and just disappear
Makes
to the
sense. Makes
cupboard.
sense. Any news on when you're going to get to do your next gig up there with the whole lockdown? Any news?
No, mate. I mean, I think it's going to be a little while, isn't it? It's really interesting, and you think about the dance world as a whole, and I think that that's the same in the Latin ballroom as it is in the line dance, as it is in the swing, as it is in all couples dancing. I think everything now has to start again at the local level,
Right.
and even events like hiring local instructors and doing whatever when the lights do come back on. I think it's really important right now. Like I see so many of my peers and friends reaching out and doing different things, and even what you're doing, mate. I mean, I've got to commend you on that too, keeping a community together, and it's just a way of staying in touch and staying interactive. But I think nurturing the local community, checking in on a lot of those local instructors and local dancers, that's where it's going to start when the lights do come back on in small
Right.
little increments as they grow. So I can see different contracts changing, or maybe swapping contracts over. If you've got this gig but I can't get there, and vice versa, and it's on the same weekend, or can you cover this class for me, or can we help out? Like I feel like a lot of that we're going to get to see that pretty soon, and that's what I'm excited about. We're trying that now in Boston with our university side of things.
Nice. Nice. Hopefully y'all will get to go out and dance soon.
Hopefully,
I do feel that I think line dance stuff and like solo stuff will probably start off probably first because there's no touching involved.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's
That's
getting all your techniques. All of my couples dancers right now, they're all doing solo techniques and solo drills and solo movement. It's key.
yeah.
So we've got the advantage in the line dance world, that's for sure.
That we do. That's definitely a quicker way to get back into it. Yeah, you probably see the hip hop classes and the line dance classes and the ballet classes
hmm
probably start up a little bit quicker than like West Coast swing, two step,
That's
salsa,
it.
only
No,
because
I
of the
agree. I mean, I think everyone's in lockdown, right? So that's as we know, or not. I think everyone's in lockdown, right? So I feel like gyms are not going to get a chance to open. So, me big advice and something that we're working on up here too is even with like the YMCA network and doing different
right.
things. So I'm helping create something for the YMCA network right now that's all based on line dance. So it's been a few years into that project. It's something again I'm passionate about giving back to a community and helping something like that in your area. If anyone's got any questions on that, please reach out. I'd love to get as many people involved in this as where it can go forward. So at the solo movement side of things, which is truly in its essence line dancing, you look at crazes like Zumba and different fads within that side. But for me, in the essence, we've got so much rich quality of movement and contextual side of things and grading levels, and the tier system is already there and its structure, and that's all from my roots. I pull from that and I draw from that every single day.
That's always good. Always good. Jamie Marshall wants to know: do you remember having to do Elvis at Fort Wayne?
Uh-huh. That was terrible. I do. Hi,
Elvis with
Jamie.
an English accent. That had to be fun.
Yeah, no, I do. It was brilliant. And then I don't know whether she got a size smaller for me, whether that was intentional on the
Probably
Elvis
intentional,
costume.
knowing Jamie.
But it was brilliant. And then I realised that it was white and a little see-through as well. So I had to have a little Dutch courage to pull
Oh
that one off.
man!
But I do. It was brilliant.
Huge shout out to Miss Marshall. She'll be on my show
Absolutely.
on Friday at 5. So you'll definitely want to tune in. I'm sure she's going to have lots of old stories about people that she's going to
Oh,
gladly share.
I'm scared to tune in. I think I might watch it afterwards.
That way
Love it
she
to
doesn't
bits. No,
bust you
she's
out
brilliant.
live.
Yeah.
Stacy Proconico says, Rob, which was your best showdown that you ever performed in? And she hopes you answer correctly. You also did do a showdown routine. You, Scott Blevins, John, and Junior all performed with her when she did a
Absolutely.
showdown routine. I think I just shared that too on one of my throwbacks. I think that was up on the channel where everyone got to see a younger Scott Blevins and Rob in his ballroom attire dancing a little.
Yeah, no, it's true. And it was brilliant. She did brilliant with it. I loved that. I loved dancing with her in that because it was cool. It was her dream. It was where it went, and then again, it was the creative process. But that to me was the other end of what the showdown is and
Right.
should be about and was about within that field. And you know, I remember. I mean, look, I remember the Rock and Renegades and back in the day when I first got to meet them. So to come full circle within that and what Stacey did was brilliant. And that was the Dancing with the Stars dream and the feeling of that. Yeah, it was. It was excellent to be a part of that. Because then the nice part is I was just a prop within that side, and that's the world of pro-am, right? So being able to help someone grow and achieve different dreams and stepping out in the courage of all of that, like I thought it was brilliant. So big love to you, that's for sure.
Trevor Thornton wants to know what's your most memorable moment of being starstruck? You are known for meeting tons of people.
Yeah, I don't know if he's recalling a certain memory. No, there's a few things. I mean, look, in terms of a football context, that's a fella called Kenny Dalglish, and that was my granddad's hero within that side, King Kenny. You know, being able to be around a lot of these footballers and call them friends now, which is nuts to say. These were people that were on my wallpaper, my bedspread, my lunchbox as a kid.
Right.
And the crazy one where it came full circle is my old football coach when I was a kid was a guy called Philly Carragher, and his son Jamie went on to play over 750 games for Liverpool. So Jamie Carragher, legend in the dance world, in the dance world, legend in the football world. But what's nuts is now his daughter. I've given her dance lessons, so here I am going over to his house, moving his pool table aside, and then I'm teaching his daughter for a couple of hours different dance lessons and acting lessons, and then I'm advising them on where to go with her career for the next steps. Like it was weird, me two worlds really colliding in a separate way.
Wow.
And then, I mean, probably one of the most embarrassing and the funny ones, which I think is what Trevor's on about really, is when we were doing the TV show Strictly Dance Fever, I was in hair and makeup, and we'd just done rehearsals of a run through of the show, and what it was, because you do rehearsals with the band the first time you hear the music live, and then you're in hair and makeup, and I knew that week the guest singer was Leanne Rimes.
Okay.
So I'm 17, 18, 17, something like that, and I've loved country music right the way through my life. So I'm not bothered about the dancers, I'm not bothered about those competing, I'm not bothered about the show. I'm ecstatic that she's singing live. So I'm coming out of hair and makeup and I'm fixing my shirt, and I look up and Leanne Rimes has stood right in front of me.
Oh, man.
So I'd been thinking all week of what I wanted to say to her, but she said to me straight away, she went, "You could give Justin Timberlake a run for his money with those sexy snake hips of yours, nice dancing." I just went, "I liked country music." That's all I could say. She just kind of looked at me weird, went, patted me on the head, gave me a little hug, went good luck and buggered off. I was so gutted.
Oh, man. Oh, that's too funny. Too funny. Oh.
Madness, mate.
Let's see here. What else? Got a bunch of comments. Victor said I should ask you about Sunday nights at Boston Tea Party, but then he said just kidding. So I have a feeling there's a bad story about there. So we're not gonna talk about that on air. Michael Barr says
it was all about team bonding at Sunday nights at Tea Party. They were brilliant nights then.
Michael Barr says give Rob his best. You're an awesome human. So a huge shout out to Michael Barr. He's actually going to be on my show on Thursday.
Yeah, that's mutual, mate. Hello, brother. So
we're going to go old school with Michael Barr on Thursday. So I'm sure he's going to have some nice old stories.
Mm-hmm.
That's Victor. Come on, Victor. You should have known I was going to read it. Come on. So any plans on coming back to the countryside to compete? I know you still compete in West Coast Swing. Any plans on coming back and
interesting enough, mate. I am. Yeah, I mean it's a hard part. I mean I've been definitely mulling it over. I'd love to. Is the bottom line. You know, I'd love to, and whether that's kind of in a pro division or whether I can convince me dance partner now, Alyssa, to don on some country boots and go over that. We've definitely spoke about it. I was teaching again. I was back at Worlds this year, or this past year in Nashville to say goodbye to Nashville for a few years. And Tony Lee's back on now as the event director going forward, and hopefully by Worlds we'll be able to. But the initial plan was to try and dance a couple of qualifiers this year and see how I felt. So we'll see. Maybe showcase couples.
There you go.
But watch this space.
There you go. Yeah, I saw that it's leaving Nashville for a couple of years, going to Austin and then Orlando, correct?
We're in San Antonio, Texas, but yeah.
San Antonio, not Austin. Sorry, San Antonio and then Orlando.
And then it's onto it. Yeah, Orlando. Hopefully, going back to Orlando will be an interesting one. Maybe we can sneak a cruise on the back end of that as well.
Works for me. We can hang out in Orlando. That should be fun. It's always fun when it comes here and everyone gets to come here and party. So that should definitely be fun. It'd be interesting seeing you back down in the hat. That could be fun. Putting on the rhinestones in the hat.
Look deep to find that picture of me in a cowboy hat, mate. I mean, I haven't. I'm not going to show you what's underneath this hat right now. I look like Don King.
Well, I was trying to find with the picture I used for the event. I was like, I need to find something that's going to look cool, and I wanted to come a little old school.
Yeah.
A little old school, Rob. So I found that on your page, and I'm like, oh, I'm so using that. Using that. It's worked it. No one's like, who's that? I go, that would be Rob. Yeah, I still remember the first time Guyton introduced me to you at Worlds. You were probably like tiny, and you were in this almost like a outfit Pedro used to wear, the patented leather shirt and pants.
Mate, he was my hero, absolutely.
Right. So and he goes, he came over and he introduced me. I'm like, and you went out and danced. I'm like, okay, that's just not even right. He has like no bones. Like you were doing all these spins and stuff. I'm like, oh, this is a good one. Chris Lovelock wants to know, what do you miss most about not living in the UK anymore?
Going to the game every week. Yeah, going to the game every week. My mum's cooking.
Your mom's
definitely my mum's cooking. That's for sure. Being able to see me nan and me mates and going out for a pint every week and just kind of the culture, I guess. The culture change is something that is different. I remember I found it really hard when I first moved over here, being used to just the culture change and whatever, and that's kind of where I found solace in a lot of the Irish bars and stuff over here. It was kind of like a home away from home, and a little mini escape. But just, yeah, I'd say honestly the culture is a huge thing. I don't, again, that's kind of why I always found that like Boston and Nashville especially were two cities that were like a hybrid of what makes up Liverpool. I mean, you've been to Liverpool, mate.
Right, yeah.
You were lucky enough to get over there and see what that was. But just the north of England as well as a whole has a different feel to it. And, I'd say the people of Liverpool, what's really interesting is we identify more with the Irish and with the Americans, and even with the Scots than we do with the rest of England. And I think that it is that socialist ideal and everyone's in it together and the shirt off the back and that working class mentality, and that's my upbringing. So I miss that the most. I miss kind of everyone looking after each other and the pat on the back, But you get that over here. You've just got to work to find it and work to achieve it. The American dream's well and truly alive. That's for sure.
Yeah, I remember when I called and messaged you when I was going to go to Liverpool, and me and Kelly went over. And you're right, it does remind me a lot of going through downtown Boston, like just the way it's built, the atmosphere. It's very, very down home, like very comforting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, mate.
You sent me to Matthew Street where the Beatles played, and you told us to go check out all these places. And you're right. It was like you can just literally go from one bar to the next talking to people, and they're some of the nicest people. And I don't know if that's true every day in Boston. Sometimes they especially during sports seasons up there. But yeah, it was just incredible. Jamie Whaley said that the thing you do miss the most should be him and Danny last.
Yeah, that's it. The nights out. We used to have some great nights out, that's for sure. Or weekend-long sessions that were not at dance events.
Yeah.
And you don't even know what day. It was kind of, actually, thinking back to it, it's kind of like being in lockdown now. You don't know what day it is, and I don't know where you're at. So, it's kind of, it's kind of strange that he just brought that up right now.
Right. John Lindsay, huge shout out to Mr. Lindsay, who used to be from
Okay.
Boston.
All right, brother.
He said, what were some of your first impressions of American events when you first came over here? He goes, I remember meeting this incredibly polite, charming little kid back then.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I mean, it was brilliant. I mean, I was only 14, 15 coming over, and even on my own,
Right.
just flying over and being welcomed into this kind of family over here. And it's really interesting. It was always the first thing I noticed were the subtle differences between the dances, right? So what we do to a certain song back in England, or in my nan and granddad's classes, or any other kind of the up at Kirby Suite with Rob Fowler on a Monday night, versus then what you do over here. It was a little bit more of it was in line to a lot of the bar feel over here.
Mm-hmm.
But then the progression and the development, I mean, that was A. And then the other big thing I really remember was it was John Lindsay, it was Big Jim, it was Jason. So I'm frigging, right, there's these big fellas over here. You do eat, so
right,
the stereotype of big Americans. But then the best part is they became family to me. Do you know what I mean? So it was great. My first impression was everything's bigger in America. And then the fact
was it everything's bigger, or were you just that small back then? Because you were known as Little Rob.
Yeah, both. But the fact that it was all in a hotel was huge for me.
Right.
It was all in one ballroom, and that you could go from a hotel in and out, and you could go back to your room to get a refill of ginger ale. But the interesting one was that it was all in one place, whereas back at home or in Europe, or even the rest of the world, even when I go and teach over or dance over in Asia, there's a hall somewhere, or you're in a gym, or you're not in one place. So I think the biggest thing was all being in one place and under one roof. That was very, very novel.
Makes it easier to stumble back to your hotel room.
Allegedly.
So just got a message from my buddy Rowdy Dufresne, who amazing UCWDC Masters competitor, event director. He wants to know, what is your favorite place to visit besides going home? Besides going back to Liverpool, what's your favorite place to go visit?
I'd say I'm going to answer that in two little waves. One of my favorite places to go teach, and then explore.
Okay.
On the back of that was Japan. I love Japan. Everything about the Japanese culture, the feeling of it, the food, the people, the work ethic, working with students and groups of people over in Japan. I mean, to me, that's something that I'll never take away from me. I love it. I can't get enough of that. I wish I could be over there now. I was supposed to be, and there's a trip being cancelled. So Japan, for sure. I love Japan, Tokyo, and Kyoto. Going into Kyoto was this nod to the old feel. And again, I love history. I love, reading through reams of history. But then the other place I'd say the place that I felt the most relaxed in was Cuba.
Oh, okay.
I was lucky enough to go over to Cuba a few years ago with a group of about 25 dancers. And we were all couples dancers in the Latin ballroom world. And I was one of only 3 or 4 people to be hired to go over. But we went on this whole cultural exchange, and it was getting into the cities and the feelings of all of that. And, a dance idol of mine is a guy called Carlos Acosta, who's a ballet dancer from Havana. And seeing where he grew up and the streets and the roots and all of that, people with not much of anything really clinging to the arts, to me was so special. I remember moments where the guy behind the bar, for example, we'd been in and out of this hotel all week, and kind of all of our guests and whatever had gone to bed, and it was just me and one other dancer. Her name was Anna Lorente, and it was me and Anna were sat at the bar. The guy had been working all week. Every time we were there for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then even late night, he's closing the bar. He'd been there non-stop, so work ethic-wise. And then at the end of one night, towards the end of our trip, he asked the band to play one more song, just as he was wiping down the counter. And he came out, unbuttoned his top, unbuttoned his bow tie, rolled up his sleeves, offered his hand to Anna to dance, and then was the most incredible salsa dancer I've ever seen in my life. And I couldn't help but bawl my eyes out.
Oh,
It was just so beautiful and poignant within that side. So I'd say Cuba. It's an excellent question. Getting to see people's houses and getting to watch these different dance classes and lessons and all of that stuff going on over there. It was brilliant.
nice. Maddie B wants to know: have you ever turned down a gig because of a Liverpool game being on?
Yes,
Yes.
wholeheartedly. Yeah, I have. Like even going over to do some Strictly stuff in England. Like I'll talk to my agent over there and say, right, here's the fixture list. I wait. My whole year comes out when the fixture list gets released. So everything about my life revolves around the Liverpool game, and no matter where I'm going. So even in Japan, for example, the game's kicking off at 3 o'clock in the morning. I know that I'm in the studio from 7 till 10. I'll be up watching the game no matter what. But yeah, I've turned down gigs because of cup finals. That's for sure.
Oh man.
I won't book anything in May or June.
All right, I'm going to make sure to get to these last two questions for sure.
Okay.
One of them I know I warned you about. It's been asked every time. I've asked this to everybody but one, every choreographer, every instructor I brought on.
Okay.
If money was no object, where would you hold a dance event? And who are the first 5 instructors you'd call up and invite?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've heard you ask this a couple of times, actually.
Yep.
We're tuning in and different things. I know my Glover from Another Mother yesterday.
Yes. She
went
went girl power.
She did. So I guess I'm going to have to go to the other end of the spectrum. And I really like what it is that she said, to be fair. And that's how proud, we're very similar in that, proud of our hometown. In case you hadn't guessed, I may have mentioned the word Liverpool a couple of times. To me, I'd have it there. It'd have to be back at home for me. And I know that a lot of different events have in the past. And like Liam Harritton's had some, and I know Masters have had different events down the line. And
right.
Rob's had a lot of different things there. So for me, I'd say the city of Liverpool. But it would be adding the tours and the elements of dancing to live music and going to see the Cavern and all of the places and being able to show the city of Liverpool off the right way for me. And I'd have it, if money was no option, I'd take over St. George's Hall, which is a gorgeous building.
Yes.
It's been seen in many movies. I guess one of the latest Harry Potter films, or the Prisoner of Azkaban, or whatever it was, or Prisoner of whatever. A lot has been filmed in there. I'd have it in St. George's Hall in Liverpool. And then what was the second part? Who were the hire?
Who are this won't be the entire staff, but who are the first 5 people you're calling up and say, I want you at my event?
Oh, okay. So that'd be all of my idols within the dance world, and within the line dance world, and people that have really inspired me within those things. I mean, for me, that's Rob Fowler first and foremost. I mean, I owe so much to Rob for my life as to where I'm at right now, and I know so many people do. So many of my peers do within that side. Rob would pick me up from school in the middle of the day, or pick me up from school, and then we drive to like his class out in Harrogate on a Tuesday night, or he'd pick me up and we'd drive away for the weekend. And I was mostly in the car just to keep him awake on the way back, as everyone will attest to. But it was brilliant, and it was life on the road, and that got me used to travelling. So Rob Fowler straight away. I owe so much to Rob Fowler. Pedro, same thing, massive inspiration. The first time seeing him compete or perform, it was a freedom in that side. And for me, Pedro would have to be there. Scott Blevins, again, his Monday nights at Rob Fowler's, and there was when he'd always bring Scott over. And back then he was in his vest, or his, as you Americans call it, your wife beater. And he'd come out, he had his locks. But to me, he was brilliant. So what's that? Rob, Pedro, Scott, 2 more, yeah?
Yep.
That's tough. 2 more, the first 5. I'd honestly say I'd bring back out of it is Rob I.
Oh.
And I think Rob I, to me, was brilliant. I remember his Johnny Bravo routines and stuff like that. Like, yes. To me, Rob I was brilliant. And I saw him a couple of years ago. He randomly turned up at Liberty Swing, and he was just stood outside the ballroom one random night.
When I was working
catching up with him.
When I was working for Grant Austin, I randomly ran into him at a swing event in California. I'm like, wait a minute.
Right, it was brilliant.
Yeah, so it was like out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, swinging ours. I mean, if you think back to the dancers that really kind of were
Yes.
poignant within that, and that was the Beast was a game changer, a
Yep.
massive game changer. So the Beast and all of Rob's stuff. Come On Get Up was a Janet Jackson track that was just this mad, crazy. He went off into so many different things, and that was always in the advance room in Kirby. So there's that. I'd say obviously then Have Fun Go Mad and Where They Went and the different things, but Swinging Ours for me was always a big,
Yes.
big thing, and that was Rob I and Robert Royston.
Right.
But Rob I for me, it'd be someone I'd bring back, and then fifth would be Roy Hiddesaroto. So Roy's like my brother. We grew up competing with each other in different events, and I'd go and stay with his family when I travel on my own, and likewise. And to me, Roy, I'd do anything for Roy. And it was brilliant. Even this year at Worlds, the closing night, the last time in Nashville, it was me, Roy, there was Darren Paul and Bernadette Carmichael. So me, Roy, Darren and Bernie, like the last ones within Worlds. It was closing night. The ballroom it was emotional on that side, and even Brian B was there, and it was cool. But I'd say, I'd say it'd have to be Roy.
Nice. Other question. This came from Brandon Zahorsky. He came up with it last Friday. I asked him to come up with a question for me to ask all my guests this week. If you had to come up with a dance step that was described your personality, if you were a dance step, what would you be?
Okay, so a line dance description, a line dance term. I mean, you could go philosophical on that, and you can say like a rolling grapevine. I mean, life truly has been about twists and turns and bobs and weaves, and
Yeah.
and then the more that you try and do that drunkenly, you could say that. I don't know. It's the pivots. I'd say a Monterey turn.
A Monterey turn. Nice.
Yeah. So being able to touch and go and stay in touch and always come back to being centered. Wow, this is getting deep.
Yeah, you did get deep
always
there.
coming back to being centered, but then it represents kind of both sides, my sports and my love for sports and love for the arts. So a Monterey turn.
That does. Yeah, that was really deep, man. Wow. So, actually, Trevor does have a good point. Yeah, I'd be interested to know this one. If you can come up with a question for me to ask him one, what would you want me to ask people? Trevor said you're very creative and very unique, as he puts it.
To ask all of your guests.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have to come up with that on the top of my head right now, or
No, I'll let you think about it because I know you. I know if I know you, you're going to get deep and philosophical and come up with something very nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely inspiration. Not necessarily where do you draw your inspiration from, but if there was one person that you could always check in with or have a look over your work or your movement or your choreography, just as this, who would be that voice on your shoulder or that inner ear that maybe we'd all know within this world? Who's been that side? Or I'd go with who was that first person that really kind of gave you that big start and why.
Okay, those are both good. I'm gonna have to use those.
Yeah, that's where I'd go.
Awesome. Well, huge shout out. Thank you so much for coming on and joining me today. It was a pleasure as always.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
Thank you everyone out at home for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. If you just now tuning in, you can go back as soon as it posts, and you can go back and watch it in its entirety on either Facebook or YouTube. It'll be on both.
Bingo.
Make sure you like and follow and subscribe us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. That way you can catch all of our shows. Tomorrow's guest at 5 is going to be none other than the event director, choreographer, instructor extraordinaire, Derek Steele, all the way from Detroit, Motor City. He's going to be joining us. Tell us a little bit about how he got into it, what it's like coming down from Canada, now living in the U.S., and then what it's like. He's been on the front line working in an ER. So join me tomorrow at 5 o'clock.
I mean, Derek, what he's doing is brilliant. You've got a great guest there coming up, mate. Derek's boss. Good luck.
So, for everyone at home, see you guys tomorrow. Enjoy.